Okay guys, so the first thing you'll want to do is get set up as far as the images that you want to have traced to make the decals to put onto your little glow lights. And so you can see on my computer screen here on the top left where my mouse is moving, I've already moved, or actually I've already traced a few images already. And so I'll show you how to trace other images that you might want. So grab a file or get the file that you want to trace out. And then I like to make it a little bit bigger just so I can see it a little better without having to zoom in. So you highlight it and then resize it to whatever size you want. And then on your menu options here, open the trace panel and then select trace area. Then once you do that, you'll want to highlight the image you want to trace. All right, once you do that, you can see that it turns it yellow, and then I just want to trace. In this case, you can do regular trace or trace the outer edge, because all you're doing is making a silhouette, if you will. So I'm just going to hit regular trace, and then I know it traced by the red lines now around the black image. So if I grab somewhere in the white here, I can take out the original image, and you can see the hollowed out red lines of the silhouette that I just traced out. So I'm just going to highlight the item, go to my color palette menu, and then I just like to make it black so I can see it right away. Okay, so then once I'm done with that tracing, I just get rid of the rest, or get rid of the original image because I have this here now. Now, the thing about this is these little lights are pretty small. So you can see I'm holding it in my hand. It's about the size of a small egg, and so if you look here in this ruler, it's about an inch up from the base before it starts to really curve in a lot. And you want to try to stay away from the curved area as much as possible because that makes applying a decal a little bit more difficult, at least a bulbous shape. If it's curving in a cylindrical, so this way, that's not necessarily as bad. But this thing really is only about an inch and what is that, an inch and a quarter wide as well on a flat face. But if you have a graphic that's wider, because this is a flat surface that just curves in one dimension, it's easier to apply versus curving into this bulbous, which is a multi-dimensional curve. Anyway, so what I'm going with that is about now that you've traced out your image, you'll want to make sure you size it. So I don't want to go too much higher than 1 inch in height. So I'm just going to select my height function. Well, I locked the aspect ratio, so that if I change one function, either height or width, the other dimension, not function, will change appropriately, but also relative to whatever dimension you did change. So if I change the height to 1 inch and then hit return, that automatically sizes it to 1 inch height in graphic, and you can see by the line there. And then this the aspect ratio makes it so that it's 1.5 inches wide, which is perfectly fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and trace out the rest of these guys here. So I'm going to grab my item, I'm going to highlight, actually you know what, I'm going to do all of them at one time. Okay, then I'm going to select my trace area. I'm just going to highlight all these. Those are the areas I want to trace in yellow. These are very simple images. I'm not going to get into messing around with thresholds and high pass filters, etc., etc. Since these are super simple images, these kind of functions are you get into and you mess around with a little bit if you have a complex image. Anyway, so I'm going to trace all these items here, and then so now I can get rid of the original image behind it. Just delete that, delete that, delete that, and you can see my red outlines. Now what I'm going to do here is highlight all the items and then make them black so that I can see them. Okay, so now those are my items. They're all grouped together, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to release the compound path. Now that when I did that, each section of these becomes its own image, or yes, so you can see by the little boxes, this is its own image, that's its own image, that's its own image. So I want to group all those together so it's one item. Same with this one should just be the one item. And then this guy is multi-piece. You can see all the little boxes around my stormtrooper head. Actually, let me get rid of the grid so you can see that better. You can see each of these little items are individual items, so I want to group everything together. There we go. So now I can move it as one. And so in this case, this guy right here is almost 2.5 inches. I don't necessarily want it that wide, so I'm going to go to about 1.5. Oops, not 10.5. I have to hit the correct buttons here. 1.5 inches, which makes this only about half an inch tall. I do want to make it a little bit taller, so I'm going to unlock the aspect ratio. That way I can change and alter just one dimension. So if I do that, I can make it taller like that, and I'm totally cool with that. So that's that guy. This, I want to just make lock the aspect ratio. I don't want it any higher than 1 inch or much more than that. Now with this one, it's sort of got a lot of small little bits to it here. Let me resize this again. All these little ones here. So those might be, I don't know, that might be pushing it as far as how small the silhouette can cut. We'll find out. So just make that 1 inch in height. And then this little cat image here, make that 1 inch in height. All right, so now that I've got all of these guys set up, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to arrange them into basically a pattern, if you will, on my cutting mat so that I can have the machine cut these out, and also set up my cutting mat. And so you can see I'm arranging them. Let me turn the group back on. In this strip that's 3 inches tall by the full 12 inches wide, and that's because what I've done is I've already set up my cutting mat here with a strip of black vinyl on it that's about 5 inches tall by the full 12 inches wide. So actually what I could do to conserve some vinyl here is, so I know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, within 5 inches there. And when you space these out, you want to have enough space so that you're not, when you try to cut these out individually, you're not going to hit any one in particular. And so what I like to do with some OCD here is I will align those in a straight column using my column alignment tool. And all I did, guys, is I just highlighted the column that I want, go to my column alignment tool, and now they have a column spacing tool. If you're using Designer Edition, I don't know if the standard has it, and it basically puts an even space between each of the objects based on their height or width. And in doing so, I know that I have a nice clean line that I can cut this way vertically, and I can cut this way horizontally as well. Actually, I'm going to bring these guys down just a little bit because I know my strip is 5 inches tall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just counting the blocks, which are 1 inch. All right, I'm looking here to make sure I have a nice clean cut there. Okay, guys, and with everything all set up, I just hit the send button to bring me to my menu that's prior to cutting, and I want to make sure that I have everything set up to go. And so you can see here's all my images on the left side there, and the right side is going to be your machine settings. And so what I like to do is if one of these is not highlighted, and this is just tool 1 is your auto blade, tool 2 can be your ratchet blade, or if you have a different type of blade or pen holder in there. But by default, this is set for auto blade, and that's what I actually have in my tool 1 carriage holder. So anyway, because none of these are selected, and you can't click it right now, what you have to do is highlight the items that you do want to cut, and there's a little gray box that will form up around them. When you do so, now you can see that it's highlighted. So that means it recognizes these red outlines. Let me zoom in here a little bit. And the red outlines is what the blade will actually cut. All right. So now that I've selected that, as far as the blade setting itself, again, I'm using auto blade. So I have found that if you go to the default settings of vinyl glossy that come in your Designer Edition or Designer Studio, Silhouette Studio, that the default settings for vinyl glossy works great for Oracal 651, which is the vinyl I'm using, and it has a blade depth of 1, a force of 10, and a speed of 5. I just left the defaults for passes of 1. I make sure that this is on the cut and not the sketch setting, and that I recognize or let the machine know that I'm using auto blade, not ratchet blade or deep cut blade. All right, and so now that I have that all set up, I know it's getting ready to cut. I have my Cameo on and ready, and so I can see down here at the bottom where it says it is ready. Now I have mine hooked up via Bluetooth. You might have yours hooked up via wire. And so everything is ready to go. All I have to do next is load up my cutting mat, and then we'll hit send down at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here real quick. You'll hear me loading up my cutting mat, just hitting load, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit send. And that sent it to my machine. Turn on some extra lights here. So now my machine is setting the blade depth to 1, and it's going to start cutting the graphics out that I've set up. So I'll let this do its thing, and then we'll pick up when it's done. Okay guys, so the machine Cameo 3 has finished cutting out the images. I just went ahead and unloaded it from the mat and cut off the excess vinyl, and now I have the images that are cut on this piece of vinyl that I need to weed out. Now you might see in this one here, it's the little ghost face. The nose pieces, which are super tiny, already gone. They probably got stuck underneath the bottom of my blade, one of my blade carriages. So I'll just clean that off later. No big deal in this case because those actually do need to go. So I need to weed this out. And so what I'll do is, because I know each of the images are I did exterior cut images or outside cut images, I'm just going to carefully peel these off. And on the Stormtrooper, I'm probably just going to lose those little vent things right there. They're super tiny. I'm not going to bother fighting trying to get something out those small. In my opinion, that looks pretty good anyway. So I'm just going to peel this off carefully. Make sure the part that you have peeled off does not touch any of the image again, because Oracal loves to stick to itself, and then if it grabs onto itself, you'll be fighting it later to get that off. Okay, and so I'm losing the nose piece on my little face right here, so I'm going to push that down if I can. It's got stuck to the back of this here. Might have to fish that out later here, if I can try to get it. Alright, so if you do have a piece that gets stuck, pulled off, you might have to fish it out later. In this case, one of the scariest Christmas or whatever got stuck and I've lost it. There it is, it's on the back of the vinyl. So I'm just using an X-Acto knife as my tool for weeding. And so I don't know if you can see that little black dot, but that's the nose right there. That basically just goes right back on here. You may have to replace things. There, push it down so it stays just like that. And so now I've weeded out most of the images. Just have to get some of the finer small details in some of these here. So for example, this skull here, I got to take out the eyes. Weed out the eyes. And the two nose pieces right here. This is why I like using an X-Acto knife, because it has such a very fine point on it when it's sharp. And then on the Hogwarts hat here, just peel it. Get these items off of this. Just like that. Alright, so all the small pieces are weeded out. All the small pieces except for the vents on the Stormtrooper head there are where they need to be. Just kind of looking everything over to make sure everything is set where they're supposed to be. Push everything down, make sure it's good. Next thing I need to do is get some transfer tape on it. And so I've cut out a piece of transfer tape already. That's going to be big enough to cover all of these. And so what I like to do is I will kind of bend mine in the center like this. Make sure I'm going to land and hit all of the images with my transfer tape. And then I'm going to lightly drop the center and then just kind of let it fall. After that, then I'm going to take my squeegee using my hard edge here, press that down and go one direction and then go the other direction, making sure that they're pressed down very well, nice and hard. Alright, so now I have all my images basically ready to go with transfer tape, but I don't want to pull all these images on this giant transfer sheet to try to put it on these tiny little glow bulbs here. And so what I want to do is cut these apart into individual images. And so I'm just going to use my handy dandy cutter tool here. Make sure I'm not going to cut anything. Here's my line. Make sure I'm not going to slice off any of the images like this. Okay. Okay, so to apply these on these decals onto these little bulbs here, first, wipe off the bowls, make sure they're clean and free of any oil or residues. This is a kind of a matte surface on here, so it's a low surface energy, so you're going to have to really make sure that your decal is on so it sticks. But in converse to that, when you do want to remove the decals, they should be easier to remove later on, or if you mess it up, they should be fairly easy to remove. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cleaned off a few of these here, and I'll apply these. I'll show you how to apply these. Now remember, earlier in the video I was talking about this surface area is flat, it just curves in one plane, and this surface area is rounded and curves in multiple planes because it's basically a bulb. And so you want to try to keep your decals, for ease, try to keep your decals as much on the flat side here as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and peel off one of my decals, peel the transfer tape from the backing paper. Super simple, just line it up, basically line it up where you want to put it, and then press it. Again, I'm going to try to keep mine close as much as possible on the flat part of the bulb thing, and then kind of get it where I want it to be, and then apply the decal. And I'm just using my fingers. You can see there's like a weird crease. Hopefully you can see that here forming up on the sides and sides there, and that's because it's starting to hit the bulbed area where it curves around this way versus just one flat area. So what you can do here, this is small enough that you could probably just press this out. So I'm just going to use my thumb and just start pressing it out. Just like that. Just press that out. And I'm going to do the same thing here. If you can't press it out, you could stretch it a little bit and over. So this transfer tape does stretch a little, not very much. But if you stretch it, you can kind of get some of those creases out and kind of form it, kind of like when you stretch plastic wrap or saran wrap over something. It tightens it up and makes it straighter or flatter. Okay, so basically all you want to, you can see there's like a crease forming right here, and that's because there's the curvature of the decal and the bulb piece. So once I've got that practically all the way down, what I want to do is now is carefully peel this back, and I like to keep mine low on here, and you can see that those edges aren't laid down yet, and that's going to be okay. So I'm just going to finish peeling it off. Now that the transfer tape is off, I can better press out or iron out those edges just like this. Roll your thumb down over it, and again, this is because you're trying to put a flat image over a 3D surface. So try to work this out here, just like that. Press all those edges down. Use back your fingernail if you need to flatten anything, just like that. Alright, so that's that one. Let's try applying, let's do the Stormtrooper. Here we go. Grab this guy, peel that off, and again, I'm trying to keep this down as low as possible on the flat surfaces here. And so got it lined up just like that. I'm going to press this down, left and right. Now this top one, it's a loose independent piece, so I'm not too worried about that. Just press it down like that. Getting all the other ones down nice and flat. Pressing that down. And then carefully peeling this off. Again, I like to keep mine kind of on and roll it off. That way I can see if I'm going to peel anything up as I'm rolling it off. Peeling carefully. Here we go. And then we'll just do one more here. Got this little backing paper off. Trying to keep it as much as possible on the flattest part of the bulb. So apply the center. I'm going to go that direction and that direction. Again, I'm not measuring, I'm eyeballing. If it's a little crooked, oh well, in my case, I really don't care. I think they look kind of cool if they're off-center a little bit, or maybe not entirely straight. Kind of gives it a little character, because then you just kind of whimsically put these out on display in your window or what have you, wherever you're going to do it. So, All right, guys. So basically, for the rest of these, this is the process of application. Just take your time. If you mess up, that's fine. Just you can probably pull it up off of the pull it up. This is a low surface energy surface, so they should peel off fairly easily. And then you'll have them all done. All right, guys. And so now that I've got them all done and applied, and this is what they look like, and this is with the lights off, and all the decals applied. And this is what they look like with the lights on. So I'll turn out the light here in just a second. There we go, guys. So hopefully you thought this video was instructive and informative. Kind of a cool, neat little project to do for Halloween. Anyway, super simple, super easy and fun, and pretty inexpensive to do. So if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.